Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's professional learning session, where we're going to share lots of strategies to accelerate language acquisition for English learners. I'm Emily Sumner, and I'll be your host today. Before we begin, I'm going to review a few quick tips to help the webinar run smoothly for you. The GoToWebinar platform does not have a group chat, but we do welcome your questions and your feedback, and you'll find a questions tab or a Q&A button that you can use to type in a question, and we'll hold those to a short Q&A period at the end of the webinar. If you experience any technical difficulties during the presentation, you can also use that questions feature to send me a note, and I'll do my best to resolve the problem for you. One thing you can do right now to try to make the webinar run without any hitches is to close all the other programs on your computer. So all your internet browser tabs, other programs that you may have open, Word, PowerPoint, anything like that. And that just ensures all your internet and computer bandwidth goes to power GoToWebinar. If you do have audio or video lags that last more than a second or two, you can log out of GoToWebinar and just come right back in, and that often resets the connection for you. We are recording the webinar, so if you're not able to stay for the whole 30 minutes, that's okay. We'll send you a link to the recording along with the slide deck and your certificate of attendance in the next couple days. We'll try to get it out tomorrow, but it may be a day or two after that, but we will get that out by email to you. You'll also find the recording posted to the Ballard and Ty website, so keep an eye out for that information. All right, I think we're ready to get started, and I am pleased to invite Brenda Rosas to join me on screen. Welcome, Brenda. Brenda is an educational consultant with Ballard and Ty, and she is going to be your teacher today. So Brenda, are you ready to get started?
I am, thank you.
Great, take it away.
All right, so again, my name is Brenda Rosas, and I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Chinese, but a Master's in English, TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages. So I've actually spent 15 years in the classroom, secondary, EL, multi-level. Multi-level is actually my passion. I've also done a lot of EL curriculum and assessment development, and also professional development. And now I'm just doing EL in a different way. I actually began using the blended learning approach in 2009. So whenever I look at curriculum or think of EL teaching materials, yes, I like paper-based, but I directly always think of something digital or how to teach it digitally to students, whether they're in front of me or virtually. Today, we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be looking at the success stories at Moore Public Schools, which is in Oklahoma. They have used our hands-on English curriculum as well as our frames for fluency for one semester. We did some Q&A with them, tried to see how things were working there. In Oklahoma, they're at Moore Public Schools. They have 25,000 students with a growing EL population of 1,400. And we are going to look at how they used hands-on English, which is normally K1, frames for fluency as well with their newcomers and beginners in a mix of in-person as well as online learning because of the times today. So we're going to look at their success stories. We're going to talk about the components of hands-on English individually as well as some frames for fluency. Frames for fluency will be for those older newcomers, anywhere from, well, it's actually K to 12, so even secondary students can benefit from this, but specifically with more schools, they've used it for their 2nd through 5th grade. We're also going to look at some strategies that you can implement right now that we do teach through hands-on English and frames for fluency, but you don't necessarily need the materials to teach these strategies or use these strategies in your classrooms. And then we're going to have some Q&A at the end. Okay, so with hands-on English, well, as well as frames for fluency, there is a very short prep time. In the world of EL, this is priceless. So according to Karen Cisneros, who is the ELL coordinator at Moore Public Schools, one reason that the district selected hands-on English over other programs is its short prep time, which is priceless in the world of teaching. I have to completely agree with this because when you are a teacher, you are teaching during the day. You then have to go and grade papers. You then have to lesson plan for the next day. With hands-on English as well as frames for fluency, you're going to see a very short prep time. But before we go over any of that, I wanted to focus a little bit on the philosophy of Ballard and Ty in general, and then specifically with hands-on English and frames for fluency. There is always a focus on language. So we explicitly teach vocabulary as well as grammar, form, and function when we focus on language. So we are not an ELD curriculum trying to be ELA for English language arts. We are really an ELD program, really targeting English learners and focusing on language. We love to build oral competency. So we do a lot with oral practice, oral fluency to build that confidence. We do it in the form of sentence frames. So you're going to see a lot of that. And that is how we teach grammar, form, and function. We help students use vocabulary in those sentence frames. And we always stress academic skills. So reading, writing, listening, and speaking are always going to be integrated. We really want students to be engaged and interactive in the learning process. What is actually unique, though, about hands-on English is that while we focus on ELD standards, of course, you'll see it there listed, we also focus on content standards. So ELA, math, science, and social studies, students are going to get a little bit of that content in their curriculum and practice time, along with ELD standards. So with hands-on English as well as teacher guides, the teacher guides are very set up to be, almost zero prep. All you need are your materials. It's scripted for you. It's all activity-based. So in hands-on English, for example, you're going to see time allotments, whether they're 20 minutes to 25, maybe 30. You could then plan your lessons accordingly. There's going to be an explanation with scripting, as well as materials, examples to show the students or to, even say in the scripting, and it is comprehensive in nature. So reading, writing, listening, and speaking. With Frames for Fluency, you are also going to have those teacher guides. There's scripting for the I do it part. So it's I do it, we do it, you do it. So students get ample practice to practice with the teacher first, and then to do things on their own. There's going to be explanation as well as scripting of examples. You just use the materials, and this one is pretty much zero prep time. Here's an example of the hands-on English teacher's guide. You're going to see here, all those teachers need to do is pull the materials, find the materials, whether that's the paper-based materials they want to use, or later you'll see we have a teacher's e-port where teachers can access the materials digitally to project on the screen for virtual or to put up into the classroom for students to look at it digitally. But the blue part, you can see the scripting. The black part with the words, you'll see the explanation, the timestamps of 15 minutes. So you're going to see a lot of the different things, like this is an activity, then you show the slide. So it's very, very easy to use. And you'll also see that it's very visual in nature, so you know what material to pull out, what words to teach, and it's very easy to follow. For Frames for Fluency, you're going to see this teacher's guide, even less scripting, activity-based. Each of these colored note cards are activities that you can do with your class. And basically, it's so simple. You're going to have a form, modals, function, expressing mood, and should, would, could sentence frames. So I could, as a teacher, say the I do it part. The we do it part, I might say, Emily, could you help me out with the boy? The boy should maybe not throw the starfish back in, or whatever sentence the students want to come up with. The teacher gives part of it, and then the students will finish it off. Then it's you do it. So students will make sentences on their own, and that's Frames for Fluency. A strategy that comes with hands-on English that is really used a lot is Realia. The reason for that is because hands-on English targets kindergarten, first grade, maybe second grade. So we call these the littles. With the littles, you're going to want objects. Realia is all about bringing real objects in so they could see. Obviously, I don't have a actual object, but here, pretend it's an object of an orange block. And this actually utilizes things with Realia. We have other activities called the talking box, where you might put all the objects in the box, have students pull it out or teachers pull it out so you could talk about the actual objects. But let's look at the scripting. So what is this? This is a block. What color is the block? It is an orange block. So I'm directly teaching students what an orange block is. Then we'll do some comparison because we're talking about little versus big. So little, it is a little block. Big, it is a big block. So the idea here is you are comparing little versus big. Image-based slides. So we do a lot with images, even in Frames for Fluency. So all of our curriculum is really all about image-based teaching, especially with vocabulary. So here you're going to see big and little. You're trying to teach the students what big means versus little. So is the dog big or little? And the students will reply looking at the image. And all of this is actually in the digital e-port that teachers can pull up to show the students. Now, is the dog big or little? We want the students to respond, right? It is a blank, so some kind of adjective, and then dog. So we want the students to say, it is a big dog, if referring to this one, or it is a little dog. And later we'll want them to extend out into more adjectives and maybe more objects. So sentence frames. Whether they're digital, whether they're paper-based, the goal is the same with sentence frames. You really want students to have confidence, fluency, automaticity, to really be able to come up with sentences to respond to questions or even come up with questions. So with the case study, you could see here that the Moore teachers said that given the district's goal of increasing scores on access testing, we all know testing is important, hands-on English focuses on speaking and writing. And they could see that noticeable improvement with the lower, but also the higher level students' speaking abilities. So they see this across levels, and it's mainly because of the sentence frame component. It's easy to use. It's good for pair work, small group, whole class, and it also helps students with phrasing, not just sentences, but phrasing and even maybe pronouns. So here you'll see Hands-on English has a set of frames, as well as Frames for Fluency has their own set of frames. These frames are paper-based only in Frames for Fluency, though I do want to add, but regardless, they're all very useful. You could always type it up into a slide to make it digital. But again, here's that sentence frame. It is a blank and then a noun, right? So it is a little dog. It is a thin dog. Essential questions is another important component with any type of curriculum lesson you create. You want to use essential questions to introduce a topic, to make a connection between them and the world. So right now, it's very difficult in the land of virtual where students are, watching things go on with the teacher and maybe not touching and feeling things. But even with an essential question, you can connect them to things they already know about. The essential question will also make the lesson thematic, meaningful, and relatable. So for example, how do you describe animals? By the way, this lesson that we're pulling parts from today is all about animals, if you haven't noticed. Describe means to tell about something. For example, in this chapter, we're going to describe the animals, how they look like, how big they are, how fast they are, how they feel. Okay. So with more schools, they felt that with hands-on English, they were able to use real life experiences to lead to more conversations. So students were having fun, they were creating connections. Corey Ottman shows that her students had a great time with the unit on wild animals and habitats. They were able to hold real chicks, super lucky, and talk about real animals in their habitats. Patty Pedraza's students were able to look at, for example, the theme picture of students playing or girls playing soccer. And this sparked their conversation about their own love for soccer. And Angela Sanders' students, they were able to ask each other questions about real life experiences. So the more your essential question helps them relate to the real world, students can then come and bring more conversations to the table. Here's an example of that theme picture. This comes specifically from Frames for Fluency. So it's of girls playing soccer. And you're going to see in this card the listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities. With Frames for Fluency, you're even going to have activities for higher levels, which probably help more schools reach those higher level students and even the ones that were even higher with multi-level. But you're always going to have speaking questions as well as writing prompts, and then later they can present formally as well. So strategy, graphic organizers are hugely important, any kind of graphic in general. So with hands-on English, with this chapter, students are going to see an anchor chart. Teachers can start it off, they can ask for input to create this anchor chart, but really again, talking about animals, and then this anchor chart specifically is about the characteristics of animals, like how many legs do they have, or what size they are, do they swim, what's their habitat. We also can have charts, for example, opposites. Students in this chapter will learn about short versus tall, big versus little, and you can even create word lists for students before they attack the sentence frames. So for example, it is a blank blank, right? So for example, if it's dog or cat or fish, you can give them a chart with opposites or have them add to that list and create one in the class so they know what words they can put in those sentence frames. So it is a heavy duck. I don't know. All right. Vocabulary. We all know as teachers, vocabulary is hugely important. And if you have been following our webinars, images are hugely important when teaching vocabulary, right? So images, words, teach images for the lower level, words if they are higher level, ready to read. But images are engaging. They make that quick connection, whether you're in kindergarten or even 12th grade. Images are hugely important all the way through. So please, please, secondary teachers, older, like elementary, use the images. It does not matter what the image looks like as long as they can figure out what the image is so they know what the vocabulary is. In hands-on English, you are going to see paper cards as well as student cards, maybe not so good right now with, the pandemic, but later they can interact and say, show me cow, show me spring. With the digital aspect, it's really cool because you can drag and drop like elephant in. You could then drag the word elephant or just all the images to teach the vocabulary to the students. I love games, active games. If you look at our Speak to Write or some of our earlier webinars, you're going to see lots and lots of learning activities, I call them games, that you can do with your students to practice vocabulary, to put it in a new context, to have them create sentences, stories, a lot of different areas of just practice. So please, please play games and practice vocabulary with your students. So vocabulary, when students have a larger vocabulary, they're going to make better sentences. So the quote you can see here by Corey Ottman, my kids wrote the best sentences of their lives. Now this is a very, very big statement. Their example was the baby turtle scampered to the ocean floor. Now, if you're talking about a kindergarten first grade student, this is an amazing sentence. So Cisneros and Peak both shared the same success story of a second grader, okay? So kindergarten, second grader, elementary, wow, right? Especially with English learners. And you could see that these types of vocabulary, the sentences, it really does increase when their vocabulary has, for example, scampered, or the adjective of baby and turtle, not just floor, but the ocean floor. And so you could see here with hands-on English, when you use bigger words, when you expand vocabulary, you put them into sentence frames, you're able to have students express themselves more. All right, so with TPR and chants. Chants are really great for young students, and I know a lot of teachers know this. They do songs, they do chants. My little kindergartner's doing that just in Spanish because she's in a dual language program. But the idea of songs and chants is students are getting that pronunciation system in them. They're learning words that they're repeating. They're doing hand motions that then match those words. So this is TPR, right? It's total physical response. We want students to be able to move and speak and do all of that, especially in that younger age group. If you aren't sure what TPR could look like or what this boat race chant could look like, here's an example of a video of what it could look like. Here we go.
Row, 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 go, go, go. Faster and faster, ho, ho, ho. Big and little, short and tall. What do you think? This boat's too small.
All right. So that is important because it really does teach the students to, move and practice songs and chants. So once you have taught vocabulary, you've done the sentence
Brenda,
frames.
just interjecting, we're not seeing your slides anymore.
All right, are we good?
There we go. Yep,
Okay,
we're good.
sorry about that. So with practice and extend, it's very important to be able to give students a chance to write. Sometimes we might think, okay, they're just learning letter formation and learning to write, but they are able to write words, and even if you're giving them a sentence frame, it's even easier, right? So we always like to start with an image. So for example, this is about an animal. They choose an animal. They're then drawing an animal, and they're writing a sentence about the picture using the sentence frame. They might then speak about it and share with the class. So for example, it is a blank, right? So I could put, it is a thin snake, or it is a slimy snake, right? So any other kind of adjective, and I could then share that with the class. Another example is they could cut these out as masks, and they are actually pretending they are, like, for example, the cow. My name is Cowley. I am a black and white cow. I like to eat grass, but I don't like to move. I don't know, something fun. But the students get to share a dialogue about their animal using the sentence frames. We also have printables as part of hands-on English. Again, using printables is very important for individual or group work. So you'll see here, tall, thin, soft, fast. So these are the adjectives. We want students to describe the animal using the adjectives. Here's a sentence frame. I am blank and blank. So for the giraffe, I am tall and thin. So we're giving students different adjectives to then fill in the blank. So it's very guided, it's very scaffolded in nature. Printables can be used to do a lot of things. For example, reading skills, writing skills, vocabulary practice. Here's an example of a reading skill. The students are going to read a story. We are then asking them to sequence the story with these images. Reading skills is important: character, plot, setting. We really want students to be able to do all of that because that is a skill they need for ELA. In order to do that, they definitely text. In hands-on English, you're going to see a lot of fiction and nonfiction. I wanted to take a break here to talk about frames for fluency. Frames for fluency, there are recommendations for literature books that you can teach for the older kids. You would tell the story and then go over some of the literature frames we have in frames for fluency to then talk about it. Okay, back to hands-on English. You're going to see a balance of fiction and nonfiction. On the left, you're going to see the hippo. It's a story, a fictional story about the hippo and meeting all of Miss Hippo's friends. And then you're going to see the nonfiction side, where it's about a farm and what animals live on a farm and what the farmer might do each day. Image-based readings. So when you have readings that are very image-based, these are actually in the form of very big books that teachers can barely flip through. You are going to see that students are more engaged. They, especially if you're projecting on a screen, they feel like they're part of the learning, not as isolated according to more schools. You're going to then see that students, they tend to be less shy and want to talk about the reading when they can see images in front of them. With hands-on English, you are going to have assessment, whether it's formative or summative. A lot of it is observation-based. You're going to be seeing if they can do nouns, verbs, content, as well as language. So when they do full-on presentations, which is the summative assessment, you're going to see, for example, their final project called the capstone. You can then rate them and assess how they're doing. So flex activities, one is the capstone project. So it's the culminating activity at the end of the chapter. You're going to see art. It's very much art-based, but then they do a formal presentation using sentence frames, using the vocabulary they learned. And they are then going to present. This one actually is interactive in nature. It is a partner project where they are pretending they're one of the characters, and then they are having a dialogue, as you can see here. English maths is another flex activity that's really cool. A lot of older kids like to do this, so teachers will get it for their 2nd through 5th grade students as well. It's vocabulary, it's conversation. They need to speak about it to then write. A lot of the topics are tell a story, working with character, setting. So a lot of the writing needs that we do need to address are done with English Maths. It is supplemental in nature as well and can be, used for the older kids supplementally or as part of hands-on English. For multi-level, you can see here that it's supposed to be for newcomers or beginners, but it also has worked with beginning all the way to advanced. One example was Kathy Haynes, who is a fan of English Maths. She found that in each chapter, they could be used for different levels. Maybe with the little ones, you're just writing short sentences, but with the older ones that are higher level, you can write full-on whole pages, and there's plenty of space for them to organize and write their ideas. They come up with imaginative stories using these picture prompts. And also you could see Elvina Peak, who, uses the material to match the level. So maybe these kids are going to do the higher level English Maths, or the ones near the end of hands-on English. But basically, you can see that hands-on English meets the needs of your newcomers, but also students with varying language abilities, because they can learn to read words or read the sentence and write even more. So it makes this adaptable and fun for all levels of students. So in conclusion, hands-on English, you'll see here, you'll get teacher guides, program guides, word and picture cards, sentence frames, printables, and then your big books, and even your teacher's e-port. So the e-port is important because teachers can project onto the screen. They can show the vocabulary, the sentence frames, the slides, the big books. They can show the printables. They can make it interactive. They can pull some of the digital resources and put it in something like Seesaw or Canvas or Google Classroom if they need to during this time of virtual learning. But the idea here is it's all there for a teacher, whether you want to teach it digitally or whether you want to teach it through paper-based materials. But that is hands-on English. That is where more schools has found their success in using hands-on English. So those are all the different components. Frames for Fluency I touched on as well, because they are, more schools is using Frames for Fluency with their older students. Again, this is K through 12, so your secondary students is a newcomer program. This will work great. You're going to see two very easy to use teacher guides, the sentence frames, the word and picture cards, and of course the theme pictures that can be used at multi-level. Carousel of Ideas incorporates Frames for Fluency. It's going to add on to it like resource books as well as full-on lesson plans in the scripted teacher guides. You're going to add in those literature books as well. It is a comprehensive program for K to 5, but if you're using hands-on English, 2nd through 5th grade, it's really great for those students. Champion of Ideas is our secondary program. We have it paper-based, but completely digital as well, where the teacher and students can be digitally on it. This would be after Frames for Fluency, so the newcomers, they need more rigor. You're going to move into Champion for your level 1s through level 4/5. English Maths, we're part of hands-on English. We did talk about that. I'm pulling this out as supplemental as well, so you can use it for your other grade levels. And then we do have assessment. So we have pre-K all the way to 12th grade, English as well as Spanish proficiency tests in oral, reading, and writing. For oral from 2nd grade on, we are completely online now. Our oral assessments are completely online and digital, so you can give it virtually as well, and of course reading. So we have these assessments that have a really great diagnostic report at the end that we just did a webinar about. So if you are curious about how our assessments and our curriculum line up, please look at our webinar that we just did before this one. But it's great for placement as well as progress monitoring. We are here to help you with your needs with EL students. If you just want to chat, you want some professional development, but if you want to look at our curriculum and how our materials can fit your needs, please come talk to us. I do want to offer this up because I was specifically talking about Chapter 5 in Hands-on English. We do have a 15-day trial where you will get digitally the Chapter 5 lesson plan. So you'll see a lot of the components I talked about and the examples that you can actually try with your students today. Please just contact me, email me is the best, and say I want a hands-on English 15-day trial. I could send that to you and it'll come with the teacher's guide. We also have the Champion of Ideas teacher's guide that comes with Chapter 1. It's like a full month of teaching if you wanted to try that with your students. All right, Emily, I'm going to turn this time back over to you. I know I didn't leave you much time.
No worries. I know people wanted to hear this great content, so thanks for walking us through these activities and these different components. We are right at time, but we'll go ahead and take just a couple of questions before we wrap up here. So a few questions came in just to reiterate sort of the grade spans that you were talking about. Are these materials appropriate for high school?
Okay, so Champion of Ideas is the one that is appropriate for high school. However, Frames for Fluency can be used for high school as well as middle school for newcomers, like 2 to 3 months, hit hard, foundational thematic language, but not hands-on English.
Okay, great. And is hands-on English an ESL curriculum, and is it used in ESL pullout classes?
Yep, great question. So hands-on English is EL. It's not ELA. However, it does touch on the standards of ELA, science, history, and social studies. So it can be used in a pull-out classroom. Some schools are actually using it for push-in because it's EL plus the different content standards. It could be used one-on-one as well. So pull-out, push-in, one-on-one.
Okay, and we will send a link to directly to the hands-on English information on the Ballard and Ty website, and there's additional information about standards alignments and that there, so you can get some more details. Or feel free to reach out to Brenda directly, and she can walk through that in greater detail. Do you have any recommendations for EL software or books such as high-low books?
So we don't actually have curriculum for that. Usually that's called decodables or readers for students. We don't actually talk about that and sell that just because there's so many books out there that students can use. So the answer is no, I don't have any recommendations right now.
All right. And in terms of the hands-on English materials, are those available just digitally, or is it a package of the materials, print and digital?
So with hands-on English, there's a whole physical set of all the things we just talked about, but there's also the ePort where a lot of that is on there as well. So it's both.
Okay.
You get access to both.
Great, that's good, as we're still in a very transitional time of in-person and not in-person. So, and we'll just take one last question before we let everybody get on with their day. And this is a big question for a short amount of time, but what strategies do you think are most effective for language development when you're working just one-on-one in a 10-minute session?
Yeah, definitely vocabulary cards. You can do a lot with that one-on-one and see what students know, have them create their own sentences. Sentence frames, very useful. Whether you use our sentence frames or not, you can always create your own. But those are very useful one-on-one. Use images to have a springboard to talk about. So theme pictures, any image. I know I keep talking about our materials, but it could be any material, it could be any type of thing, but definitely do some vocabulary practice with them, some form and function practice with them. Have them draw and then talk about it, especially for the younger students. Art is very useful. There's always outside phonics that you can do. We do have a little component of phonics with hands-on English, but definitely phonics is something for them one-on-one, because you'll see some students are really good at phonics and some really do better with whole language. There are a lot of different strategies, and I think some of our other webinars have addressed that, yes, but one-on-one is a great opportunity.
Excellent. Well, as usual, our time together went super fast and we could go on talking for hours. But as Brenda mentioned, there's a lot of webinars that we've been doing over the past year plus. And all of those are on the Ballard and Ty website that you can access, and we'll send a link to that in the follow-up email. Again, you'll probably get that email tomorrow, if not the next day. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. And you can always go to ballard-ty.com to learn more about all of the programs that Brenda reviewed and to find those past webinar recordings. And the case study that we did with the Moore School that Brenda referenced throughout the webinar, that's also available on the website and can help give you just a little more insight into how different educators across the country are using those materials with their English learners. So again, keep an eye out for that email in the next day or two. Your certificate of attendance will be included in it. You'll want to scroll to the very bottom of the email and look for the big orange button that says My Certificate. Click that button and you'll download a certificate of attendance. It's a PDF. Sometimes it can take really as long as 60 seconds for that certificate to load. So just be patient and it will pop up for you. So thanks again, Brenda, for being here with us today. And thanks to everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. We hope it's been valuable for you. And we hope to see you on another webinar soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.